3 years had passed since the Volani arrived on Earth. In that time, they had built homes, learned new languages, and started to feel safe for the first time in their lives. But safety was an illusion, and some of them knew it. A young Volani, male named Pip, stood at the gate of a human military training center in the desert. He was shaking so badly that his gray fur moved in waves. His large eyes stared at the buildings ahead, and every part of his body told him to run away. "You can do this," said the woman beside him. Her name was Grace Mitchell, and she was a sergeant in the Human Defense Force. "Take small steps, one at a time." "Small steps," Pip repeated. His voice cracked. "I am Volani. We do not fight. It is not in our nature." Grace looked down at the small creature. He was barely 3 feet tall. His bones were so light that she could have lifted him with one hand. By every measure the galaxy used, he should not be here. He should not be trying to become a soldier. "Then why did you volunteer?" she asked. Pip was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was different, harder, older than his 12 years. "The Korathi destroyed my village when I was 8. I hid in a garbage container. Through a crack, I watched them kill my mother and father. I watched them laugh while they did it." His ears pressed flat against his skull. "I do not want to be helpless again. I do not want to hide while people I love are dying." The training program had been controversial. Many humans thought it was cruel to put the Volani through military exercises. Their bodies were too fragile. Their instincts told them to flee from danger, not face it. Some people called the program torture, but the Volani themselves had asked for it. Over 12,000 refugees had signed a petition requesting military training. "We do not wish to be victims forever," the petition said. "Give us the tools to protect ourselves." The first day was a disaster. Pip collapsed during the morning run. His hollow bones could not handle the impact of jogging on hard ground. During weapons training, the noise of the guns made him vomit. In the hand-to-hand combat session, he curled into a ball and stopped moving for 20 minutes. That night, Colonel Marcus Webb called a meeting. "This is not working," he said. "Their bodies are not built for this kind of training. We cannot turn a rabbit into a wolf." Grace shook her head. "Then we need different training. Training that works for their bodies, not against them." "Sergeant Mitchell, with all respect, what you are suggesting is impossible." "Maybe. Or maybe we have been thinking about this the wrong way." Grace leaned forward. "We have been trying to make them into human soldiers. That is the mistake. We need to make them into Volani soldiers." Over the next several months, Grace and her team created a completely new training program. They studied everything about the Volani, their bodies, their senses, their natural abilities. What they discovered shocked everyone. The Volani could hear sounds that humans could not hear. Their ears could detect frequencies far beyond human range. They could hear a person breathing from 100 meters away. They could hear a heartbeat through a wall. Their eyes could see perfectly in almost complete darkness. While humans stumbled in the night, the Volani could see as clearly as in daylight. Their small size, which everyone thought was a weakness, was actually an advantage. They could fit into spaces that no other species could enter. They could hide in places that larger beings could not even imagine. And while their bones were fragile, their reflexes were incredibly fast. They could react to danger faster than any human, faster than most species in the galaxy. "We were trying to fix what was not broken," Grace told Colonel Webb. "We need to build on what they already have." The new training focused on stealth and precision. The Volani learned to move without making any sound. They learned to use the darkness as their friend. They trained with special weapons smaller and lighter, designed for their hands. They learned to turn their fear into a tool, using it to sense danger before it arrived. Pip changed. The panic attacks that had crippled him became early warning systems. When his heart raced and his fur stood up, it meant danger was coming often before anyone else knew. His small body let him go places that human soldiers could never reach. His burning desire to never be helpless again pushed him past every barrier. "You are not learning to fight," Grace told him one evening. They were sitting in the weapons room, cleaning equipment. "You are learning to protect. There is a difference." "What difference?" "Fighting is about hurting someone. Protecting is about keeping someone safe. You are not becoming a warrior because you want to kill Korthi. You are becoming a warrior so that no other Villani child has to watch their parents die." Pip's small hand stopped moving. He stared at the weapon he was cleaning, but his eyes were seeing something far away. "Is that why you do this?" he asked. "Is that why humans fight?" Grace thought about the question. "Partly, but there is something else." She put down her own weapon and looked at Pip directly. Humans have something called protective aggression. When someone threatens the people we love, something changes inside us. We become different, more dangerous, more determined. "We do not have this," Pip said quietly. "We only have fear." "Are you sure?" Grace asked. "Think about it. If someone was hurting a Villani child right now, right in front of you, what would you do?" Pip was silent. Then slowly, his ears began to rise. Something changed in his dark eyes, something hard and fierce. "I would stop them," he said. "Even if you were scared?" "Yes." Grace smiled. "That is protective aggression. You have it. You have always had it. You just needed someone to help you find it." 18 months later, the first class graduated from the Villani integration program. There were only 23 of them, a tiny number. But they were something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. They were small and fragile and lived short lives. They still felt fear more deeply than any human could understand. But they had learned to fight, not like humans, not like Korthi, not like any other species. They fought like Villani. Word spread through the refugee communities on Earth. The unwanted, the weak, the useless, they were learning to fight back. And across the galaxy, in the dark halls of the Korthi Empire, someone was beginning to notice. Someone was beginning to plan. The predators had not forgotten their prey. The Korthi were coming. But this time, the prey would be ready. The 17 ships looked like they were dying. They moved slowly through the darkness of space, their engines flickering, their hulls covered in burn marks and patches. Inside those ships were the last living members of an entire species. Commander Lisa Carter stood at the window of the human space station and watched the ships come closer. She had seen many things in her 20 years of service, but this made her heart feel heavy. These were not warships or trading vessels. These were coffins that had somehow learned to fly. "How many are on board?" she asked. Lieutenant Danny Brooks looked at his screen. "About 42,000. That is everyone. The entire Villani species." Lisa closed her eyes for a moment. 42,000. The Villani had once lived on 12 different worlds. They had numbered in the billions. Now they could all fit inside a sports stadium. The Villani were small creatures, standing only 3 feet tall when fully grown. They had soft gray fur, large dark eyes, and long ears that moved with their emotions. Their bones were hollow like a bird's bones, which made them very light but also very fragile. They lived only 30 years on average. They had no claws, no sharp teeth, no venom, no natural armor. They could not run fast or fight well. The Galactic Council had a system for ranking species. Category 1 was the strongest. Category 9 was the weakest. The Villani were Category 9. They were officially the weakest intelligent species in the known galaxy. 3 months ago, the Korthi Empire had invaded the Villani homeworld. The Korthi were Category 2 massive reptilian warriors who lived for conquest. They had taken the Villani planet in 6 hours. 6 hours to destroy a civilization that had existed for 10,000 years. The survivors had fled in whatever ships they could find. They had gone to the Galactic Council and begged for help. They had asked every species, every empire, every federation for a place to live. Everyone had said no. They are useless, the Torvax ambassador had said during the council meeting. They cannot work. They cannot fight. They cannot even be good slaves because they break too easily. Why should we waste resources on them? 47 species had voted against helping the Villani. Only one species had voted to help them. Humanity. Earth had joined the Galactic Council only 11 years ago. Humans were still new to galactic politics. Most alien species thought humans were strange, too emotional, too attached to ideas like kindness and fairness. But when the vote came, the human ambassador had stood up and said 5 words that changed everything. We will take them in. Now those 17 dying ships were approaching Earth's orbital station, and Lisa Carter had been chosen to welcome them. She walked to the meeting room where the first Villani delegation was waiting. The doors opened, and she stopped. 3 small figures stood huddled together in the corner of the room. They were pressed against each other, their large eyes wide with fear, their long ears flat against their heads. The oldest one stepped forward. According to the records, her name was Myra. She was 26 years old, elderly by Villani standards. "You are the humans," Myra said. Her voice was soft and musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "You are the ones who spoke for us. I am Commander Lisa Carter. On behalf of Earth, I welcome you." Myra's ears twitched nervously. "The other species told us things about humans. They said you are predators. They said you are violent and dangerous. They said you would use us and throw us away when you were finished." Lisa knelt down so she was closer to Myra's level. She wanted the small creature to see her eyes, to see that she meant what she was about to say. "We are not going to use you. We are going to help you." "Why?" asked a younger Villani male with darker fur. "What do you want from us?" "Nothing," Lisa said. "We want nothing from you." The 3 Villani looked at each other with confusion. Myra's ears rose slightly, then fell again. "That cannot be true," she said. "Everyone wants something. That is how the galaxy works. The strong take from the weak. That is the only rule that matters." Lisa stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the refugee ships were docking at the station. Thousands of frightened Villani were about to step onto human territory for the first time. "Let me tell you something about humans," Lisa said. "A long time ago, on our planet, we had many wars. We did terrible things to each other. We know what it means to be refugees. We know what it means to have nowhere to go." She turned back to face Myra. "We also know what it means when someone reaches out a hand to help. That is what we are doing now, reaching out our hand." Over the next few months, the Villani settled into their new home. The human governments gave them land in a beautiful green region with mountains and forests. Many Villani also chose to live in human cities. It was not easy for them. They were scared of loud noises. Human food was too strong for their stomachs. They were terrified of dogs and cats and almost every earth animal. But slowly, day by day, they began to build new lives. Lisa Carter was assigned to work with the Villani community. She helped families find homes and jobs. She helped children enter human schools. She solved problems and answered questions and did 1,000 small things every day to make the transition easier. One evening, she sat with Myra on the porch of the community center. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the sky orange and pink. "I still do not understand your people," Myra said quietly. "What do you not understand? You have spent so much money on us. Billions. Your people have given us homes and food and medicine, and we have given you nothing in return." Myra's ears drooped sadly. "We are weak. We are useless. The whole galaxy knows this." Lisa was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "When I was a child, my family adopted a dog from a shelter. He was old and sick. He was missing one leg and could barely see. Everyone told my parents they were being foolish, but they adopted him anyway. Why? Because he needed someone. That was enough reason. Myra's large eyes became wet. You see us as pets? No, Lisa said firmly. I see you as family. We adopted you into our family. That means we take care of you. We protect you. We help you grow. Not because of what you can give us, but because you are ours now. That is what family means. Myra was silent for a long time. The last light of the sun faded from the sky. The Korathi will come for us, she finally said. They always come. They do not let their prey escape. Lisa put her hand gently on Myra's small shoulder. Then we will be ready for them. At that moment, neither of them knew how those words would come true. Neither of them could imagine what the Villani would become. But the first seed had been planted. The seed of hope, of belonging, of family. And from that seed, something extraordinary would grow. The Korathi came on a Tuesday morning, just before dawn. 12 warships appeared at the edge of the solar system. They were massive vessels, built for war, covered in weapons. Each ship carried thousands of Korathi warriors, 8-foot-tall reptilian soldiers with scales, like armor and claws that could tear through metal. Warchief Grass stood on the bridge of the lead ship, watching Earth grow larger on his screen. He had led hundreds of raids against dozens of species. He had never lost. This will be simple, he told his officers. The humans are soft. They wasted their resources on Villani vermin. They do not understand true warfare. We will take what remains of the prey, punish the humans for interfering, and return home with glory. The Korathi landing ships descended on the Pacific Northwest settlement just as the sun was rising. The warriors expected to find panicking refugees and weak human defenders. They expected an easy victory. Like all their other victories, they were wrong. The first wave of Korathi soldiers hit the ground and moved toward the settlement in perfect formation. They had traveled 200 meters when the first warrior fell. A single shot had gone through his eye, the only weak point in his armor. Then another fell. And another. And another. Contact. The squad leader roared. Where's the shooting coming from? No one could answer. The shots came from impossible places, from underground, from inside air vents, from positions that no normal soldier could fit into. The Korathi spun in circles, firing their weapons at shadows, hitting nothing. Beneath the settlement, Pip moved through tunnels that the Villani had spent 3 years building. The humans had helped design them, but the size was purely Villani, too small for Korathi, too small even for most humans. The tunnels connected every building, every defensive position, every escape route. Team 3, report, Pip said into his communicator. We are in position. We count 40 enemies in Sector 7. Waiting for your order. Pip checked his tactical display. The human soldiers were fighting the main Korathi force at the edge of the settlement, but a smaller group was trying to sneak around to attack the evacuation route. 3,000 Villani civilians were escaping through that route. If the Korathi reached them, it would be a massacre. Pip's team was the only thing between the enemy and those civilians. On my mark, he said. 3, 2, 1, mark. 23 Villani soldiers, the entire first graduating class, fired at the same moment from hidden positions. The Korathi never saw them, never had a chance to fight back. In 47 seconds, the flanking force was eliminated. Above ground, Grace Mitchell led a mixed squad of humans and Villani against the main assault. She had trained these Villani herself. She had watched them grow from trembling refugees into something the galaxy had never seen. Kira, take your team left, Grace ordered. Destroy their communication equipment. She pointed at a large Korathi transport. Danny, give us covering fire. Keep their attention on us." Kira was a young Vellani female who had survived the fall of her homeworld. She nodded once and disappeared into the bushes with her squad. They moved like ghosts, no sound, no trace. 3 minutes later, the Karathi communication equipment exploded. "They cannot call for help now," Kira reported. "Good," Grace said. "Now let us finish this." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Karathi raiding force had been completely destroyed. 342 Karathi warriors lay dead. The humans had lost 11 soldiers. The Vellani had lost 8. It was the first military victory in Vellani history. War Chief Grath was captured alive. His warriors had been killed around him while he stood frozen in disbelief. These were the Vellani, the weakest species in the galaxy. They were supposed to run. They were supposed to hide. They were supposed to die. They were not supposed to win. Grath was brought before a joint human-Vellani court. Commander Lisa Carter read the charges against him. "You have attacked protected citizens of the human coalition," she said. "How do you answer?" Grath laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. "Protected citizens? The Vellani are vermin. They are prey. They have always been prey. You cannot change what the galaxy made them." From the audience, Pip stood and walked forward. He was small, his head barely reached Grath's chest even though the Karathi was on his knees. But something in the way Pip moved made Grath's laughter stop. "I was 8 years old when your soldiers killed my family," Pip said quietly. "I hid and watched them die. For 10 years, I believed what you just said. I believed I was vermin. I believed I was prey. I believed I was meant to be hunted." He paused. The room was completely silent. "The humans taught me something different. They taught me that what you are born as is not what you have to stay." "You are still weak," Grath snarled. "You will always be weak." Pip's ears rose slowly. "We killed 300 of your warriors today. Your ships are destroyed. Your invasion failed. And we did it not by becoming like you, but by becoming something you never expected." He turned to face the court. But his words were for everyone, every human, every Vellani, every species watching the broadcast across the galaxy. We were the weakest species in the galaxy. By your measurements, we still are. But we are no longer victims. We are no longer prey. His voice grew stronger. "We are something new. Something you do not know how to fight. Something you cannot understand." He looked back at Grath, and there was no fear in his eyes. There was only certainty. "We are the war beasts of Earth." Across the galaxy, billions watched the broadcast. The Galactic Council demanded emergency meetings. Species that had ignored the Vellani for decades suddenly wanted to talk about them. The old order, the simple rule of strong over weak, had cracked out, and in the refugee communities of a dozen different species, the abandoned, the conquered, the forgotten, something began to stir. Hope, possibility, a question that had never been asked before. If the Vellani could rise, could they? The answer was coming. And it would change everything. The news of the battle spread across the galaxy like fire. Within days, the Galactic Council held an emergency meeting. Ambassadors from dozens of species crowded into the Great Hall, their voices raised in argument and accusation. The Torvax ambassador, who had once called the Vellani useless eaters, was the loudest of all. "The humans have committed a crime against nature," he declared. "They have taken a harmless species and turned them into weapons. This is a violation of galactic law." Ambassador Kate Sullivan stood to represent humanity. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had spent 30 years dealing with alien politics, and she was not impressed by the Torvax ambassador's performance. "We have not violated any law," she said calmly. "We taught them. Nothing more. The same way you teach your young to hunt." the same way the Korathi teach their warriors to fight. We offered education to those who asked for it. The Volani are Category 9, another ambassador interrupted. They are biologically incapable of combat. Kate raised an eyebrow. 342 dead Korathi suggest otherwise. The chamber exploded with noise. Kate waited for silence, then continued. For 5 years, you mocked us for helping the Volani. You called them burdens. You called us naive. You said we were wasting our time on creatures who would never contribute anything. She paused and looked around the room. The Volani who defended their homes last week were volunteers. They chose to fight. They asked us to teach them. We simply listened. You have created a dangerous situation, the Torvax ambassador said. If every weak species thinks they can become warriors, then perhaps, Kate interrupted, the strong will have to think twice before attacking the weak. Perhaps the galaxy will become more fair. Perhaps species like the Korathi will stop launching raids on defenseless populations. The meeting ended without agreement, but something had changed. In the weeks that followed, representatives from 12 other species quietly contacted Earth. They wanted to know how humans had done the impossible. They wanted to know if the same could be done for their own people, on Earth. The Volani community was transforming. Pip had become famous, though he did not enjoy the attention. He spent his days at the training center, helping to prepare the next generation of Volani defenders. The program had grown from 23 graduates to over 2,000 active soldiers, with 5,000 more in training. One evening, Grace found him watching a night exercise from the observation tower. You know what surprises me most? She said, you are not becoming more human. You are becoming more Volani. Pip tilted his head. What do you mean? When we started this program, everyone thought we were trying to turn you into human soldiers. But look at how your people fight. The stealth, the coordination, the way you use your size and your senses. Grace smiled. That is not human warfare. That is Volani warfare. Something completely new. Pip considered her words. We learned to be ourselves. Just better versions of ourselves. Exactly. And that is what scared the Korathi. They knew how to fight humans. They knew how to fight every species in the galaxy. But they had no idea how to fight Volani, because no one had ever seen Volani fight before. 3 years after the first battle, the Korathi returned. This time, they sent everything. They had 47 warships and 250,000 warriors. They were determined to crush the humans and reclaim their prey. They did not expect what was waiting for them. The Volani had spent 3 years preparing. They had built defensive positions across the Earth, each one designed around Volani abilities. They had developed new weapons and new tactics. They had grown from a handful of soldiers into a real military force, and they had allies. 12 other species had sent volunteers to train on Earth. The Torvax, yes. The same species whose ambassador had insulted the Volani had exceptional night vision and natural camouflage. The Vren had nervous systems that made them almost immune to pain. The Silky could survive in the vacuum of space. Each of these species had been labeled as weak. Each had been conquered or abandoned or forgotten. Each was now learning that the labels were lies. The Korathi think strength is about size and aggression, Commander Lisa Carter said during the planning meeting. They think strength means the ability to destroy. They are wrong. Strength is about adaptation, creativity, the willingness to protect what matters. She looked around the room at the humans, Volani, and representatives of a dozen other species who had gathered to defend Earth. Today we show the galaxy a new definition of strength. The Battle of Sol lasted 3 weeks. It was the largest military engagement in human history. The Korathi had numbers and firepower. They had centuries of experience in conquest. They had never faced a real defeat, but they had never faced anything like this. The Volani led the ground defense. They held positions that military experts had said were impossible to hold. They turned every city, every town, every outpost into a death trap for the invaders. The Korathi could not see them, could not hear them, could not predict them. Meanwhile, the other species used their own unique abilities. The Torvax vanished into shadows and struck without warning. The Vren absorbed punishment that would have killed any other soldier and kept fighting. The Silky sabotaged enemy ships from outside, working in the cold vacuum of space. When it was over, the Korathi invasion force was destroyed. 31 of their 47 ships were captured or eliminated. Over 200,000 Korathi warriors were dead or in prison. War Chief Grath was captured again. He was brought before the same court, and this time there was no laughter in his eyes. There was only shock. "You have created a monster," he said to Pip. "The galaxy will never be the same. The weak will rise against the strong. Everything will change." Pip stood before him, calm and certain. "You are right," he said. "Everything will change. The system that said some species were born to be victims is dying. We killed it, and we will help every other species that was told they were worthless." Grath growled. "This is not over. Others will come. Stronger empires. Bigger armies." "I know," Pip said. "And when they come, they will not find us alone. They will find a galaxy full of species who learned they do not have to accept the roles they were given." He turned away. "The old galaxy is dead. Welcome to the new one." News of the victory spread to every corner of known space. More species sent representatives to Earth. The coalition of free species was born an alliance of the abandoned. The conquered, the forgotten. The hunters had become the hunted, and the hunted had become something entirely new. 20 years had passed since the first Volani refugee ships arrived at Earth. In that time, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The old Galactic Council had been reformed. The ranking system that classified species from Category 1 to Category 9 was gone, abolished by unanimous vote. In its place was a new system built on cooperation instead of domination, on diversity instead of strength. Alone. Earth had become the center of something called the Coalition of Free Species. 37 species had joined, all of them former victims, all of them once labeled as weak or useless. Together, they had defended themselves against 3 separate invasion attempts by different aggressive powers. Together, they had won every time. The Volani had changed most of all. Their population had grown to over 4 million, spread across Earth, Mars, and several space stations. They were no longer refugees. They were citizens, builders, warriors when necessary, partners in everything else. Human medicine had extended their average lifespan to 45 years. Their culture had survived and grown stronger. General Pip stood on the observation deck of the Coalition. Flagship Unity. His gray fur was streaked with white now. He was old by Volani standards, though still strong. 20 years of fighting and leading and building had changed him in many ways. But his eyes still held the same determination that had driven him since childhood. Today, he was watching history repeat itself. A fleet of refugee ships was approaching Earth. 17 vessels, damaged and limping through space. Inside them were the last survivors of the Irani species, conquered, scattered, abandoned by the galaxy. Just like the Volani had been 20 years ago. "Same story," said Grace Mitchell, who stood beside him. She had retired from active service years ago, but she still advised the Coalition on integration programs. Her hair was completely gray now, and lines marked her face, but her eyes were as sharp as ever. Everyone else turned them away. We said yes. "How many survivors?" Pip asked. "About 60,000. All that remains of their people." Pip's ears rose slowly. enough to start over. The first Orani delegation came aboard an hour later. They were even smaller than Villani, barely 2 feet tall, with see-through skin and 4 arms. They shook with fear as they entered the meeting room. Their large eyes darted nervously around the space, looking for threats. Pip remembered that fear. He had felt it himself, standing in a human meeting room for the first time, certain that no one would help, that his people were doomed. "You are the humans," said the Orani leader. He was an elder named Tessic. "You are the ones who helped the Villani." Pip stepped forward. He was still small compared to the humans in the room, but he moved with confidence and authority. "I am not human," he said. "I am Villani. 20 years ago, I stood where you are standing now. I was afraid. I was certain that we were going to die, that no one would save us." Tessic wrapped his 4 arms around himself. "The council says you are dangerous now. They say you turned the Villani into weapons. They say many things." Pip gestured toward Lisa Carter, who stood nearby. She was an admiral now, one of the highest-ranking officers in the Coalition fleet. "The humans did not turn us into weapons. They gave us something much more valuable. They gave us the belief that we could become more than what the galaxy said we were." "We are weak," Tessic said softly. "We have always been weak. Everyone knows this." "So are we," Pip replied. "So were all the species in this coalition. The Torvax, the Vren, the Silky, every one of them was told they were useless. Every one of them was abandoned. And every one of them discovered that the galaxy was wrong about them." He stepped closer to the Orani delegation. His voice was gentle but certain. "You are not weak. You have survived. You kept your people together through terrible loss. You traveled across hostile space carrying your children and your elderly. That takes a kind of strength that the Korathi will never understand." Tessic's shaking slowed slightly. "You would help us? We would teach you to help yourselves. We would give you the training and tools to become whatever you choose to be. Not human, not Villani, Orani, but stronger and more capable than anyone thought possible." Admiral Carter stepped forward. "We have a saying on Earth. The family you choose is stronger than the family you are born into." She smiled at Pip, remembering a conversation on a porch 20 years ago. "We chose the Villani as our family. Today, we are offering the same choice to you." Tessic looked around the room. Humans, Villani, and members of a dozen other species stood together. Once, they had all been alone. Once, they had all been afraid. Now, they were something else entirely. "Why?" Tessic asked. "What do you want from us?" Pip smiled. It was an expression he had learned from humans, but it felt natural now. "We want you to become strong. We want you to prove the galaxy wrong about you. And someday, when another species is losing hope, we want you to stand where we are standing now, offering them the same chance we are offering you. That is all? That is everything." Tessic was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly, his 4 arms unfolded. His posture changed. Something like hope appeared in his large eyes. "Then we accept. Teach us to become what you have become." Pip turned to the window. Outside, the Orani refugee ships hung against the stars. 20 years ago, he had arrived in ships just like those, carrying nothing but fear and grief. Now he stood as a general, a leader, a symbol of what the unwanted could achieve. The humans had taught him many things over the years. How to fight, how to protect, how to believe in himself. But the most important lesson was simpler than any of those. Family was not about blood or species or where you came from. Family was about choosing to stand together. Family was about saying you are ours now to someone who had been abandoned by everyone else. And once you were family, nothing in the galaxy could break that bond. Grace put her hand on his shoulder. "You did good, Pip. You all did. Pip watched the refugee ships, remembering his own arrival so many years ago. A frightened child, hiding in garbage, watching his parents die. That child had grown into something he never imagined possible. "It started with you," he said to Grace. "You and the other humans. You saw something in us that we could not see in ourselves." "No," Grace said softly. "We just gave you the chance to find it. The strength was always there. You just needed someone to believe in you." Pip's ears rose high. Through the window, he could see the Irani ships beginning their approach to the docking stations. 60,000 frightened refugees, about to start a new life. 20 years ago, the Villani had been the galaxy's weakest species. Now they were something else entirely. And soon, the Irani would begin the same journey. Then another species. And another. The old galaxy, where the strong simply took from the weak, was dying. A new galaxy was being born, one where strength meant standing together, where family meant choosing each other, where the abandoned could become the protectors. "Welcome home," Pip said quietly, watching the ships. "Welcome to the family." The legacy would continue, and the galaxy would never be the same.